everyone. Welcome to the Lansing Art Gallery and Education Center tonight on this snowy day. I'm really loving the snow though because it's made everything bright, and we've not had any brightness for many days here in Michigan. But I'm Michelle Carlson, the executive director here. If I haven't met you, hello and welcome. Please come by after the talk and say hello. I'd love to meet you. I just wanted to let you know about a couple of things. We'll be doing a talk with our exhibiting artists, asking them questions and hearing all about their wonderful practices. We do have some light refreshments, so please help yourself. We have a hands-on art activity upstairs in the Education Center, so please check it out. Make your own mobile. And we also have some upcoming hands-on art making workshops available. So if you go to our website, you can sign up for those. Members get a 10% discount for the classes if you sign up. If you're not a member, you can sign up today to become a member. And I think that's all we have going on. Lots of things going on at the gallery. You can ask any of our staff if you have any questions. And then after the talk, you can also talk more with our artists. So I'd like to introduce Katrina Daniels, our exhibitions director. She'll be moderating the talk, and I believe there'll be time for questions from the audience at the end. So enjoy and welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Pass it off.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. This is on. Hello? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to first say thank you to George Orban and Ray Ramsdell for generously supporting this exhibition as our sponsors.
Right here, right there, over here.
Yes, thank you. And thanks everyone for coming for the opening reception of Working Hands. And I just wanted to ask each of you if you could introduce yourselves and give a brief introduction.
Hi, are we on?
Yes.
I'm Kelly O'Neill, and I am a mixed media artist.
I'm Angie Larson, and I'm a retired school teacher.
I'm Jessica Consiidine, and I'm a custom welder fabricator.
And could one of you, or if you prefer each taking a stab at this, can you share a little bit about the impetus for this show and sort of what was the concept behind the proposal of Working Hands?
Go ahead.
So I think my interpretation of it was basically about community. We actually met in college through metal sculpting classes. So yeah, we've been friends and making metal sculptures together for the last 5+ years. So it's been really great. And Working Hands is basically, in my interpretation, is about working with community, being inspired by each other, learning from each other, and growing with each other. So. And it's, making one-of-a-kind pieces through our hands.
It's a great answer.
Yeah, you want to say anything?
No, that was perfect.
So if you wanted to each talk a little bit about when you first became interested in art.
Okay, so I guess I'll start.
You got the microphone?
Yeah, I became interested in art in high school. I took jewelry making classes, and that's really what got me into metal. And I became a bench jeweler out of high school, and then I found metal sculpting classes, and I fell in love with making metal sculptures. And then I wanted to make fine art, but I was a really bad welder, so I was like, I'm going to go into the welding program. So I went into the welding program, and yeah, now I'm a custom fabricator welder, and I make art on the side, so that's what got me really into welding and art and everything.
I don't remember ever not being interested in art. Like from kindergarten. So, I just continue to enjoy this friendship and exploring, working with different things and combining clay and metal. It's just the creative aspect of it is just so much fun.
you're being very modest. Angie taught middle school art. I mean, round of applause for someone that teaches in the right? It's pretty awesome. So I've always been creative. I had a really supportive family. My father was a potter, and I used to watch him in his studio, and we actually took classes together in the 80s at Oakland Community College in Farmington under Piepenberg. I don't know if you know Piepenberg. So he was my first instructor. And then I, got married and worked for General Motors and traveled along the country and had a family and became a hockey mom and did all that crazy stuff. And, started to do art again with my dad. And we started to talk about making metal bases for his pottery. And so I finally took a class at Washtenaw Community College, and they kicked me out. I was only supposed to do what was in the syllabus, and I was doing more than that. So then I found the Schoolcraft program, and with these lovely ladies, and they're so inspiring. And so I just started making holders for my father's vases, and then it just expanded from there, where now I do both metalwork and clay work and try to integrate the sculpture with the clay. So that's kind of how I started.
Could you each speak to, I know you did it a little bit, but maybe a little bit more in depth, what inspires your work?
I'll start. So interestingly, we all work from recycled metal. And I don't know why that is, but we just love the patina, we love finding, we love the hunt. So, we'll go to scrap yards, and, I used to shop for shoes, now I shop for metal. So we'll go to the scrap yards, and it's the metal that'll inspire. So a perfect example is this dress on Angie's piece here. So I don't know what it was in its former life.
It was a smash, it's just a totally smashed piece of metal.
Smashed and just dirt,
and it was all
dirty and
gravel.
But
She picked it up and she said, "This looks like you."
And it does. It's like the perfect patina. And so that's what inspires you. You find the metal, and I might find someone will dump something, and I'll find it, and I'll say, "Oh, this is cool," and then that influences the next piece of metal or the next piece. And then once that metal's gone, that series is done, and then I move on to something else. So that's how I'm inspired: is shape and form, positive space, negative space working together. And I'll let Angie talk about what she's inspired.
No, there's nothing less to say, because that's exactly what happens to me. I look at a piece of metal and I think, oh, that's so wonderful.
Talk about your clay. Talk about your fish.
Oh.
Or your totems. They're so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, those are fun. I like to throw on the wheel. I got a master's in ceramics from Eastern Michigan with Suzanne Stevenson and John Lurie, and it's just such a fun process. And you gotta make stuff, so you gotta find a way to get rid of it and find a way to deal with it. And so the fish came to be. Your turn.
I think a lot of my art is very much inspired by jewelry, because that's kind of where I rooted from. So a lot of my stuff, if you looked at it in picture, you would think that it was very small, but it ends up being, these 3 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot pieces with a lot of detail. So yeah, jewelry definitely inspires my pieces. Also, I read a lot of books about the architecture in India and stuff, and I think it's so beautiful and so complex and so symmetrical what they do. And I love the concept that it's very earthy, but still has this fine art just built into these walls. And I love the designing of them. So I try to, I look for inspiration through that. And then, like she said, we go through dumpsters, we go through whatever it is to find something that can be created into a beautiful piece.
So one thread that I've been hearing since the three of you have been talking is how collaborative it sounds like, whether it's going and sourcing materials or, you took this class together. Could you each speak to a little bit about that experience? Do you ever collaborate on like an individual piece, or is the collaboration more about, you know, maybe conversation and sourcing materials and that type of thing?
So Kelly has definitely helped me in the sense of when I first started. She was very helpful for me on figuring out where I needed to go to find this material and what I wanted to look to. And since then, I think we've all developed in different ways, but we have actually created one piece together. That was our most collaborative piece, but I think I can speak for myself that I feel like it's more conversation that we collaborate, right? Like we can, if they need help with some type of specific welding, or I need help with like powder coating or something, we're able to communicate with each other and yeah, just help each other in that kind of way.
It's kind of a critiquing atmosphere. Hey, what do you think about this? Or what should I add? Or I don't like that. And it's helpful because you don't really see your piece all the time with a free spirit, and you need somebody else's eyes. It's very helpful.
Yeah, those are all exactly how we feel. It's during the pandemic, it was really hard for me because as artists, we're normally singular people anyway, right? You work by yourself. I'm not a natural introvert. I'm a natural extrovert. So during the pandemic, I found myself looking for Angela and Jessica. I was in my shop like, I need feedback. And so I started texting and sending pictures to Angie. It's like, what does this need? What do I need to remove? And so we haven't really worked together other than last summer. Angie and I were in Scrap Fest together. So we entered a sculpture. You were going to do it, but you got busy, remember? Maybe you can do it with us this year.
Yeah.
So we love that because that's true collaboration. And so we would head down to MakerWorks in Ann Arbor, and we would work there for like 6 hours till our backs were sore and our feet were swollen from standing on cement for all day. And just love that. Love the idea of like, I'm her assistant on something, then she's my assistant on something. And
Well, it was funny. Somebody said, "You finished my sentences." I mean, that sounds kind of too.
yeah, we do. We'll look at something and I'll say, "What do you think?" And you'll go, "Well," I'm like, "You're right." That's kind of how it works.
So for those who maybe haven't read your artist statement, I just wanted to, I know a big part of this show was about like celebrating this idea of 3 women working in welding and metalworking, which, I mean, art is already sort of a male-dominated space, and then you have something like welding or metalworking, which I imagine like those numbers go down even more. Could you speak to, you know, being a woman in this sort of more male-dominated space?
I'll start, but Jessica probably can speak to it more because she's literally is in the industry as a fabricator. But I would think that we all experience the typical response as a woman in a male field. I started out working for General Motors, calling on parts managers who sell automotive parts. I was the first female in every position I had. So, you know, I built a pretty thick skin. So when I came into the welding, I didn't have as many issues because I knew how to deal in a highly male environment. But what I love about the new generation, like they just don't take anything anymore, right? They don't have to conform anymore. You can be who you are, regardless of what trade you're in or what field you're in. And that is, I'm an older generation, and so is Angela.
I'm the oldest.
Right? But both of us came up in a different time where Jessica can speak to how it's changing for the better for women. And I'll let you talk about your experience.
I actually think it's very empowering. It was very empowering for me. I didn't really have as much confidence in myself as I do now, and it had its ups and downs, right? There were hard times dealing with the way that people looked at you, because sometimes you're put on a higher pedestal, so you really have to perform higher for people to validate you and your skills. So that is not just like skill related, but it's also communicating and and knowing the right terms on stuff. So it's been really empowering for me, and I'm glad to have gone through parts of it with other women, and I'm glad to continue to see more women get into the field. And and just because it never feels like competition, especially when there's such there's only 6% of women welders in the US, so it's nice to meet other ones because we're never competing with each other, we're only lifting each other up.
I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit about the actual process of welding, like from someone who's never worked with metal in that way. I find it both like exciting and terrifying, this to be managing just something that is that hot, and there's feels like there's an element of danger there. Could you speak to a little bit about that process?
So let me tell a little story. So I do art fairs, and if I've heard this one time, I've heard it a dozen times from women. I've always wanted to weld. I've always wanted to learn how to do that. And every single time I hand them my business card and I say, come on over, because I'm local, I'll teach you how to weld. I've only had one woman take me up on it, but last weekend I had 3. So I had 3 novices in my studio, and they all left with an art piece. Where's Katie? She made a beautiful flower. My sister made a valance for her kitchen, and another woman made a wall hanging. And was it scary?
At first, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, no, you caught on real quick. And she has all the safety gear, so.
Yes. I actually burn myself more cooking than I do welding. So it's the process really is just understanding the electricity. It's not fire, it's electricity.
Okay.
And it's an arc. And so just understanding the elements of that, and what would you, it's like cooking, it's like making a cake. You got to have the right ingredients, right temperature.
Yeah, they say it's sewing with fire. That's what like a
You
common
tell
term
about the
is.
specifics.
Yeah, they say it's sewing with fire. It's a pretty common term. There's so many different processes of welding, so it's really interesting that you can get into different areas. I guess it's hard for me I look at it in such a like technical and mechanical way now, just getting into the field, that I feel like when I first started, it's just, you got to be close to the metal, you got to make sure that the metal is touching and make sure your torch is close, and that's kind of how I looked at it from the beginning. And now it's much more advanced than that, right? Like we have different settings that can help you with what kind of weld you're doing and what type of material you're doing. But it's like Kelly said, it's an arc, more than it is like an actual flame.
It's a lot of volts, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you're molting metal together. You're literally molting metal together with metal, just at a high rate.
Yeah, it's very hot.
Yes. Okay.
So as you've been talking and been thinking about your work, I was thinking about how both metal and ceramic, there's like a real physicality to both of those materials. If anyone has not worked with clay, they usually come in pretty like large, heavy blocks of clay. Working clay is like a very physical, like you're really using your body in a different way than maybe you are in some art forms. And I was wondering if Kelly and Angela, if you could speak to that.
We just got some new clay at Schoolcraft, and it has grog in it for the very first time. We didn't have grog before, and I have a
It's
little...
like sand.
I have a burn on my finger from throwing with it.
It's not used to that grog. But, it's pretty physical. Wedging, when you think you've got a wonderful form and it'll fall, and you got to start all over, and... and you're messy, and it's just, it's very physical.
I think yoga is important. Like, if you really want to be good in both, especially metal, is being able to, and I've seen videos that Jessica has done, she has she's squatting and she's bending and she's twisting, and they're all yoga poses. And if you aren't limber and strong, if your core's not strong, you could hurt yourself, right? That's for sure. And you could, being older, your joints ache a little bit after you've thrown for a while or you wedge for a while. But a couple ibuprofen and a Chardonnay and you're fine. So I encourage everyone to try it. Yes, it's physical, but it feels good to do.
Yeah, I think it sounds really satisfying. I just realized I want to make sure we have enough time for anyone in the audience to ask questions. So if there's anyone who has a question, please let me know. I want to make sure I can.
Oh, there's a, okay.
Yes, please. Do either of you work with forge and anvil?
No. We've done, at Schoolcraft, they do offer an advanced course where you can do some bronzing, but we weren't able to do the pour. We had to have a forge do that for us. But there are plenty of forges in the Detroit market. I'm sure there's some in Lansing too, if you're interested. It's,
Well, I'm sorry, you misunderstood my
Oh.
forge.
Oh, like a-
I'm talking about blacksmithing.
blacksmithing.
Forge and anvil.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
blacksmithing.
it's interesting, we've taken the course over and over at Schoolcraft a while ago, and every new course, there's always a young crop of, 18, 19-year-old young men, and they always want to make a sword or a knife. So yes, they're on the anvil, heating it up with the acetylene torch and pounding on it. So yeah, you can do that there.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Now, you're saying that some of these, the materials are found, so I don't know how much manipulation after you found a piece, because look, we see these wonderful curls and swirls, and we see, things, so some of it I can see, like, okay, you probably found that piece just like that, and then some of these, they look like they must be manipulated in some way, and how do you do that?
Well, we, at Schoolcraft, they have a lot of fabrication material. One of the things that both Angie and I, and you use this too, is rollers, right? So, it's I can't even, pasta? You ever
Yes,
seen a
yes.
pasta maker? Just same thing for metal. And
You
can
just put metal in it.
Just put metal in it.
Heat
not a-
metal.
No, you
No.
don't have to heat it. It's a hydraulic machine.
So
and-
it's due to pressure, basically.
Yeah, it's pressure. And so, yes, I do a lot of rolling. I think even though metal is very hard, to me it's pliable, it's soft, it's feminine, it's beautiful. So I like to adapt the metal that I find, whether it's rolling it. Angie likes to crush it and create a lot of shadowing. So I think we all manipulate the metal that we do. And a lot of us, we cut it, like Jessica cuts a lot of rings and out of pipes and things like that. So yeah, rarely do you use a piece that you found as it was. It's always going to be either ground down or cut or rolled or bent. Yeah.
There's a
Heat
lot
it
of
up.
prep work that goes into it. Even with cleaning up like the metal, right? All of this stuff is super rusty, and sometimes they keep it like that. But to weld on a material, it's not best that it is rusty because you want the best kind of joint. So it does last, right? It has structurability to it. So a lot of this stuff that we're getting, a lot of it is prep work, and it's cleaning up all this rust, whether that's grinding it down or taking some type of cleaning chemical to it. So yeah, a lot of welding is actually just prep work and fitting up. And then it's like little welding, like it goes really quickly, but it's always the thought process before and then the finishing aspect, whether it's like finishing your piece with metal with powder coating or to whatever kind of look you're looking for.
Can you tell us a little bit about what type of welders you're using for a majority of these works?
Yes, so I use quite a different. So for me, I use like Miller and Lincoln, which is very common. Those are like the biggest ones within the industry. So for me, I do TIG welding, MIG welding as well. And actually have like a 50-year-old machine at the shop that I'm at right now, and it's great. It's really fun to work with an older type of machine because lately machines have gotten so high tech, right? So these older ones are just basic level. So like they just have like their interfacing is really simple compared to these newer ones that can be more complex. And that's just, evolving with technology. But yeah, so Miller, Lincoln, and Everlast are some of my favorite ones that I use. I feel like you guys are about the same.
Yep. Angie and I both usually use MIG because it's a one-handed weld. TIG is a lot, like you talk about prep work, the work that you do is very specific, whether it's, gates or displays and so forth, so everything has to be squared and measured. So you do a lot of clamping, and that frees up both hands to do the TIG process, where Angie and I are more like, choo, 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 with the MIG welder, right?
Well, we will have, I just want to, in the interest of time, wrap this up. There will be more time for guests to ask questions, but I wanted to bring our Executive Director, Michelle Carlson, back up in addition to, having our artists here, they've also been awarded from our Elizabeth Charles Fund, which Michelle will share a little bit about.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. We are awarding these 3 artists the Elizabeth Charles Award, and Elizabeth Charles believed in the arts as a means to deeper understanding of our humanity, and it celebrates artists championing human equity and diversity as exemplified in their work. So these women are trailblazers in their fields and doing fantastic work, as we've heard some of their stories, and so we want to support that and award them with this award. So congratulations.
I also wanted to let everyone know that the work is available for purchase if you're interested in making a purchase